When a man is accused of a crime he didn't commit, one lawyer and his daughter stand against a town's prejudice.
Maycomb, Alabama in the 1930s is a dusty, slow-moving southern town trapped in the economic despair of the Great Depression. Beneath that sleepy surface lies a rigid social hierarchy. Strict Jim Crow laws legally enforce racial segregation, dictate the everyday reality for the town's residents. Our guide through this world is 6-year-old Scout Finch. She is a fiercely independent tomboy, living with her older brother Jem and their widowed father, Atticus, a respected local lawyer. Scout's sheltered childhood is on a collision course with reality. She is about to confront two very different kinds of monsters lurking in her quiet town. The first monster is a neighborhood mystery. Down the street lives Boo Radley, a recluse who hasn't been seen outside his house in years. Local legends paint Boo as a violent phantom hiding inside his decaying, spooky home. The children spend their summer daring each other to touch the house. But soon they discover mysterious, small gifts left specifically for them inside the knothole of a nearby tree. While the children hunt ghosts, a crisis erupts in Maycomb. Atticus accepts a case that will change their lives, defending Tom Robinson, a black man falsely accused of assaulting a white woman. Atticus's decision forces the children's neighborhood fears to take a back seat. They are thrust into the dangerous prejudice of the adult world. As the trial approaches, social tension in Maycomb boils over. Neighbors turn on the Finch family, hurling insults at the children because of their father's work. Atticus stands his ground, demonstrating immense moral courage by sitting alone outside the local jail at night, facing a lynch mob intent on reaching Tom. The tension moves indoors as the trial begins. The stifling heat of the courtroom bears down on the town, gathered to watch the spectacle. We meet the accusers, Mayella Ewell, a young woman living in fearful poverty, and her abusive, ignorant father, Bob Ewell. This diagram maps the injuries reported by the doctor. When Atticus forces Bob Ewell to sign his name, the court sees he's left-handed. The animated arrows show that a left-handed strike is the only punch capable of landing on the right side of Mayella's face. The physical facts point directly at Bob Ewell. But the real trial is whether the white community lets truth override their ingrained racial hierarchy. Tom Robinson takes the stand, a hard-working man whose mistake was feeling pity for Mayella's isolation. This diagram makes the physical impossibility clear. His left arm was mangled in a childhood accident, leaving it withered and incapable of throwing the punch that injured Mayella. Despite the overwhelming evidence of Tom's innocence, the all-white jury delivers a guilty verdict. Scout and Jem watch from the segregated, colored balcony. In that single moment, their faith in fairness and justice is shattered. The aftermath is devastating. Despairing of ever finding justice, Tom Robinson attempts to escape prison and is shot 17 times in the back. The children are no longer shielded by their father's optimism. They've seen the legal system collapse under the weight of Maycomb's prejudices, revealing a town capable of fatal injustice. The fallout from the trial continues. Bob Ewell, deeply humiliated by Atticus exposing his character in court, vows violent revenge against the Finch family. Jump to Halloween night. Scout, trapped inside a restrictive ham costume, walks home through the pitch-black woods with Jem. Suddenly, the darkness erupts. Bob Ewell ambushes the children, viciously attacking them from behind. In the struggle, Jem's arm is snapped. Scout is thrown to the ground, unable to see or move inside her costume. A shadow detaches from the trees. A mysterious figure fights off Bob Ewell, ending the attack and gently lifting Jem into his arms. The hatred that began in the courtroom has followed them into the dark. The man the children once feared as a ghost is now their only defense against a very real human evil. Back at the safety of the Finch house, the mystery is solved. The savior who carried Jem home is Boo Radley. Scout finally comes face to face with the phantom of her childhood. she discovers only a shy, gentle, and deeply fragile man. Scout walks Boo back to his house. Standing on his front porch, she views her neighborhood from his isolated perspective, finally understanding her father's advice to see the world from another man's skin. Harper Lee's masterpiece teaches us that while the world harbors devastating cruelty and systemic prejudice, true moral courage requires us to empathize with the misunderstood and fiercely protect the innocent.
When the gavel strikes in the Maycomb County Courthouse, it acts as a mechanical gear, finalizing the destruction of an innocent life. Maycomb, Alabama, in the 1930s, is a town suffocating under the economic collapse of the Great Depression. But the economic stagnation is overlaid with a second layer of control: Jim Crow. Jim Crow refers to the local and state laws that enforced absolute racial segregation across the American South. To understand Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, we need to reverse engineer the social architecture that guaranteed a tragic legal failure. The central tragedy of Maycomb demonstrates that institutional evil relies on ordinary people blindly executing the rules of their social machine. Our lens for decoding this society is Scout Finch. As a young girl, Scout is initially blind to the invisible social mechanics governing her community. Her childhood operates on an axiom of innocence. She assumes people are inherently good, simply because she has not yet encountered systemic malice. The narrative tracks the dismantling of this worldview as she is forced to observe racism, class divides, and mob violence. Her father, Atticus Finch, provides the mental framework required to navigate this injustice without retreating into cynicism. Scout's journey illustrates that ethical maturity requires a transition from ignorant innocence to conscious, active moral agency. This diagram illustrates Maycomb's social structure, a hierarchy where class dictates daily life, but race acts as absolute law. At the peak, the educated white Finches. Below them, working-class white families, the Cunninghams, who endure poverty while adhering to strict moral codes. Below them is the white underclass, living in squalor and clinging to their racial status to manufacture a sense of social superiority. Maycomb operates through intersectionality, the way multiple forms of inequality, like race, class, and gender, interact to shape an individual's power. Mayella Ewell exists at the center of several systemic failures. She is white, yet she is paralyzed by extreme poverty, a complete lack of education, and domestic abuse. Yet Mayella uses her racial status to assert lethal superiority over Tom Robinson, a black man. Her false accusation reveals how the lowest members of a privileged racial group will exploit a marginalized group to protect their own fragile position in the hierarchy. Consequently, the trial of Tom Robinson is a public ritual designed specifically to enforce the social pyramid. During the proceedings, Atticus presents overwhelming medical and physical evidence. He proves Tom's innocence by demonstrating that Tom's crippled left arm made it physically impossible for him to commit the assault. But Tom makes a mistake on the witness stand. He admits he felt sorry for Mayella Ewell. Expressing pity for a white woman breaks the fundamental rule of the Southern racial hierarchy. The verdict is inevitable. Despite the facts, the jury convicts Tom solely based on racial allegiance. The Maycomb legal system executed its intended purpose, the preservation of the racial status quo. Tom's conviction lays bare a reality where objective innocence is irrelevant when the law is used to maintain social order. Atticus Finch operates with a deliberate moral compass that contrasts with the town's mechanical prejudice. His quiet defiance is visible when he sits alone outside the Maycomb jailhouse, reading a newspaper while waiting for a lynch mob. Atticus views empathy as a verb, an active, rigorous effort rather than a passive feeling of pity. He explicitly instructs Scout that you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. This teaching acts as an epistemological tool, a method for acquiring truth by forcing yourself to see the world from an opposing perspective. He applies this discipline to his enemies, seeking to understand the root causes of Bob Ewell's violent pride and the source of Mrs. Dubos's hidden morphine addiction. Atticus treats his children with this same intellectual respect.
helping them build their own independent moral frameworks. Moral fortitude requires the active discipline of empathy in a world that defaults to lazy prejudice. Maycomb enforces a secondary axis of control, the strict expectation that every white girl become a proper Southern belle. Aunt Alexandra demands that Scout conform to these socially sanctioned norms by wearing dresses and adopting polite manners. Scout rejects this performance, preferring the physical autonomy of overalls and physical activity. Scout finds an alternative model in Miss Maudie. Maudie is a pragmatic woman who conforms by baking in a dress but digs in her garden wearing men's coveralls. Miss Maudie's gender fluidity connects to her intellectual independence. She refuses to participate in the town's racist, gendered gossip circles. Scout's refusal to perform the role of a Southern belle is the domestic equivalent of her father's refusal to adopt the town's racial biases. Defying gender expectations is Scout's first step toward broader social counternormativity. It teaches her that societal rules are artificial constructs. This friction between the individual and the collective peaks when the lynch mob arrives at the jailhouse to execute Tom Robinson. Scout unwittingly steps into the middle of this anonymous collective of men. She unconsciously applies her father's empathy protocol. She isolates Mr. Cunningham from the pack, addressing him by name and speaking to him about his specific personal interests. This forces Cunningham to remember his own identity as a father and a neighbor. The men break their aggressive stance, shuffling backwards. Systemic violence can only be fractured when an individual is forced to acknowledge the specific humanity of another person. The narrative ultimately shifts away from the public courthouse to the private, shadowed realm of the Radley porch. Here, Arthur Boo Radley is reevaluated. Initially, the children perceived him as a gothic monster constructed from malicious town gossip. Boo's true nature is a gentle, reclusive protector. He steps out of the shadows specifically to save Scout and Jen's lives from an attack. The Mockingbird symbolizes a being providing song without causing harm. Tom Robinson is the Mockingbird destroyed by the legal system's cruelty. Conversely, Boo Radley is saved by private empathy. Sheriff Tate refuses to expose him. Standing on the Radley porch, Scout finally inhabits Boo's perspective. She understands that in Maycomb, the preservation of the innocent requires both public defiance and a radical private empathy.